Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. We are back with another episode of Daily Palantir. Today we have to talk about three things. Number one, price action. Stock fell even more today. Going to be giving my thoughts on what's going on with the stock, why it's down, and sort of how I think about the stock right now. We talked about it last week when it was down another 6% on Thursday, down another 2% today. We'll discuss that. Number two, Walgreens, and the CEO of Walgreens had some interesting words to say about Alex Karp. We're going to talk about that. And then finally, we got to talk about Ukraine. Obviously, Palantir and Ukraine have been working together for a long time. It seems like none of us knew how important Palantir actually was to Ukraine. I got a lot to talk about. Back at it, Daily Palantir. Let's get into it. Okay, so let's start off with the stock. Obviously, the stock is down again today. Fell about 0.65% after hours down. Another 0.15%. So why is the stock down? Kind of what's happening? It was down a little worse today. I think it got to 22.30-ish, 22.40-ish today. Ending today at around 22.84. Look, I think it's very interesting in terms of what we're seeing with the stock action. I know a lot of people are a little upset that the stock is down. Obviously, we were at like 24, 25 over the past couple of weeks. Now we're coming back down to 22.86. Three kind of key components. Number one, United States PMI data came out, which is basically an index for understanding manufacturing. Above a 50 means we're expanding. Below 50 means we're contracting. We came in at 50.3. Expectations were around 48. And that is a good thing because technically that means that the United States manufacturing sector is expanding, which means we're producing more. But there's also a hint of, well, is that bad because inflation is not really down yet? And if we're still producing that much, inflation is going to be stickier. So that kind of was a macro reason the entire market was down a little bit today. I mean, the market was doing very good in the pre-markets. Palantir was at like 23.40. I bought a bunch of shares at 23.30 when I was on the plane last night. I was coming back from Florida and I got home at 2 a.m. And while I was on the plane, I bought some Wi-Fi, bought some shares. I was like, you know what? I can buy shares of Palantir when I'm high, even if I'm not high on the stuff Alex Karp talks about in terms of the short sellers. But I was high in the air and I bought some Palantir. When I got back home at like 4 or 5 a.m., stocks down, in that $22 range. And I think that's because once that data started coming out, entire market got a little scared. So that data was not necessarily the best for Palantir and for the broader market, and that's why it's down. Number two, we had a short report, not a short report, but like a downgrade come from a firm last Thursday. That's what tanked the stock down 6% as well. In my opinion, I do not think institutional investors that are bullish on Palantir woke up in the morning after a article comes out from a relatively bearish author that has a price target of 20, but also is making the same bearish arguments that anyone could make. It wasn't anything special. It wasn't Morgan Stanley, JP Morgan, Bank of America, Dan Ives. It was just like some random firm that's like, hey, price target 20, the thing's too expensive, overvalued, etc. And then then it sold off. My point here is I don't think institutions woke up and they read the report and they sold it off. I think what's likely happening, which is my third reason for why the stock is down, is rebalancing. This is the start of Q2. So Q1, January to March, 90 days, we are done. The earnings are the earnings at this point. The results are the results. Whatever has happened for Palantir, for all the companies that are in the stock market, and that is done. They're starting Q2 today. There is a world in which some of these funds took advantage of that short report coming out and said, you know what? If that short report came out and it tanked the stock, maybe we should take some profits here because this thing's heading a bit lower. And as we take some profits, we can rebalance it into other names. Palantir's still up 35% year to date. Obviously, if you're a hedge fund, you've done 35% in a month. That's pretty damn good. You can take some of those profits, put it into sectors that might not have done as well, especially if you think most of the gains for Palantir this year have already come. Now, I don't necessarily think that's the case. I think Q1 is going to be really good earnings, and those numbers are going to do very well. If the macro holds up, I think Palantir will be rewarded. But right now, that is one of the things that's going on. Now, as I said on Thursday, this is where Palantir's stock price gets a little boring, and that's okay. The company has more news than I could possibly even cover. I mean, we've got a bunch of stuff to talk about today. There's stuff to talk about tomorrow. There's just stuff happening every single day. So there's stuff to talk about. There's updates that are happening. The execution of the company over the past 6 weeks has been just nothing short of incredible, and that's why I really don't care that much when it dips. Now it's just like, all right, whatever, get some cheaper shares. But it's okay, I think, for the stock price to be a bit boring and to consolidate in this $22, $25 range versus the actual performance against the company, because I'm seeing what the company's doing. Now, if it falls below 22, which some people on the technicals have indicated this thing's heading back to 18, then sure, maybe that can happen. Quite frankly, I will buy more shares. I will, it's just not that complicated. I think if you're really long on Palantir, there's just the mentality I have. I don't care, right? If it goes to 18.70, I will buy more, and I'll be happily buying more. It is what it is. Obviously, if you have been, loading up like everything you've got at 25, 26, it's going to hurt seeing it go back to 18. But this is kind of why you want to DCA, not chase when something runs up 40%. Sort of the basic principles when it comes to investing in a stock. And that's why I don't think it's that big of a deal. So the bottom line for me here is that if that short report or that price target downgrade report is what's tanking Palantir, I would be shocked. I think it's more so a fact of funds rebalancing, maybe using that as an excuse to take some profits, and likely the market cycle in regards to what happened with the macro today just taking place and a lot of stocks getting hit, which means it is what it is. What I did want to talk about and highlight on the price action point is the psychology now. A lot of people when Palantir was at 27.50, 26.10 said, oh my God, I wish I got in at 22, even though I didn't get it at 16, 17, 18, at 22, 23, this would have been a great buy. Well, now the stock's here at 22, 23. And so the question is, which psychology is going to win? Is the psychology going to win that is, this is what I've been waiting for and I got to buy? Or is the psychology going to win that, this thing is headed downwards and the dip is not really here yet. 27 was unsustainable. 22 is still a little bit too much. I'm looking for 18. I don't know. One of those sides is going to win over the next couple weeks. It's either going to be the people waiting below 22 or the people thinking 22 is the opportunity for them to take advantage of. And this is where the markets become the market, right? Which side is going to have its vision play out? It's going to be based on, are there enough buyers or sellers based on the corresponding prices, given how they think of Palantir. And maybe there's some events that'll come out. Maybe there's some news that'll come out. I have no idea what Palantir is going to do in the month of April, but we are now in the fourth month of the year, starting Q2. We'll see what Palantir has in store. Overall, price action is the price action. If it goes lower, I will buy. If it doesn't, it is what it is. And that's what it is in the world of Palantir. When it dips now, I buy when it goes down. If it stays up, I try to buy a little bit more, and we'll see, where it goes after Q1, hopefully after some pretty good earnings. But my job here is to analyze what those earnings could be like. So let's get into our next story, which was an exciting one that signals what the future of Palantir earnings might end up being like. Okay, so this was an exciting one. This is the CEO of Walgreens, who had some stuff to say around AI, the world of AI, and the role that Palantir is playing in AI. Let's listen to him speak.
And as it relates to AI, there are some very, very interesting things we are doing in our business, both within our own four walls and working with others, that we are super excited about in terms of everything from load balancing to inventory management, ultimately to, I think, some of the work that people are doing in stores. So there's a fairly wide landscape of things that we are using AI as a tool for, but it's a tool. And it needs use cases that and by the way, as you know, we've got years of machine learning applicability to certain things, right? But as we look at predicting consumer behavior, as we look at meeting consumers where they want to be before they even know that we're going to be there, those sorts of things. And again, in terms of a very complex operating model where we can actually improve service, improve working capital, integrate our stores with our micro fulfillment centers, we think there's some really interesting things that we can do there. I just spoke with Alex Karp this week from Palantir, who clearly is doing some interesting things there. And that's one of a number of folks that we're working with to actually, again, really get at meaningful things that we can do in the business leveraging AI.
So there is confirmation from the Walgreens CEO saying that he spoke to Alex Karp from Palantir, and that is one of the parties that he's working with. The reason I wanted to cover this and the reason I think it was interesting is because this is what Dan Ives has been saying, which is that Palantir is on a handful of is one of a handful of companies that are on the list when other Fortune 500, Fortune 50, Fortune 1000 companies are thinking, hey, who do we talk to strategize, to even get a consultation with, to be able to begin thinking of what an AI strategy looks like. I did not know Palantir and Walgreens were working together. I did not know if there's a deal in place, if there's been a deal in place for years, but the Walgreens CEO said he was on the phone with the CEO of Palantir, and that is one of the companies they were working with when it comes to AI. Walgreens stock has not done well over the past year and over the past 5 years. The company has had to deal with a lot of restructuring. They cut a little bit of their dividend last month. And so, Walgreens is a company that can dramatically benefit from the concept of AI. What I've been saying on the Market Open stream every single day is The reason I think this AI revolution is real is because what it does for every other company's bottom line earnings. If Walgreens can use Palantir, whether it's Foundry, AIP, whatever it may be, to increase revenue, increase operating margins, decrease costs, investors will buy their stock because they will see the productivity of Walgreens. And as a result of seeing that productivity enhanced by AI, machine learning, etc., they will feel more compelled to give to give Walgreens. Wall Street will be able to give Walgreens the benefit of the doubt and say, hey, you guys are making progress. We're going to buy your stock. And now universalize that across every single company, across every single industry. And Palantir is kind of that glue, that's at least how I think of it, in the companies they're working with to get those companies to have the types of earnings that lead to greater shareholder return for their respective shareholders. That is the exciting part of betting on a company like Palantir. Now, NVIDIA is obviously the granddaddy here, where the GPUs are the necessary infrastructure to make all of this happen, and that story has played out very nicely, up 700% since October 2022. I think the Palantir story is just getting started. So really encouraging to see a very big company and their CEO say, hey, we're working with Palantir, we're talking with Palantir, and now it's just a question of where that can go in the future in terms of their partnership with Walgreens. Okay, last thing we got to talk about today. This was a really good find by Arnie. I'll leave his Twitter in the chat. You guys probably know him if you're a fan of this channel. Ukraine is important, and we've known Ukraine is important for Palantir, but the article that the Times dropped this weekend kind of goes to show you just how important Ukraine really is when it comes to Palantir, or at least how important Palantir is when it comes to Ukraine. So the Times drops an article, Ukraine's secret weapon, the 40 billion pound tech firm that found bin Laden. There's a lot to this article. I'll leave it in the description. Arnie highlighted a bunch of key points of this article that I thought were really important. So I have a couple of quotes that I want to show you guys from the article. Palantir software uses AI to speed up traditional military decision-making. At the heart of this is Meta Constellation, a program which allows Ukraine to build a detailed picture of what the Russians are up to. Originally developed for the war on terror, the software has learned the geography of the Ukrainian steppe and the Black Sea as intimately as it knows the landscapes of Afghanistan and Iraq. That's pretty damn incredible that the software has been trained that effectively on the Ukraine on the Ukraine battlefield versus what it was on the Afghanistan battlefield back in 2005. Informants tips on the movements of enemy troops or clues provided by intercepted intelligence. The resultant map of Ukraine is displayed in Gaia, a software roughly equivalent to the tabletop miniature battlefields used by First World War generals to stunt around troops, albeit in the form of a live feed on a computer screen. Another interesting thing, based on these calculations, each unit of Ukrainian armies can then be directed to their most effective contribution to the war that day. The Ukrainians have more targets than they have ammunition, so prioritizing the targets is very important, said Lewis Mosley, who's the head of Palantir UK. So he's saying right here, look, we have a limited supply of what we need to do in terms of being able to effectively target. So prioritizing the targets, because we have more intelligence on where the targets are versus just shooting out a bunch of bullets and assuming they're going to hit, is very important because you don't have an unlimited amount of supply. Finally, the success or failure of the mission is analyzed in Dossier, an analog to Microsoft's PowerPoint, which updates itself automatically. That process takes days, weeks, or months, Lewis Mosley said, if you were using a PowerPoint versus something like Dossier. So this is a really, really interesting thing that Arnie found in regards to how Palantir is working with them. Here's another quote that's really interesting. Palantir originally worked for Ukraine pro bono, but the West began subsidizing its work last year. So important was its technology considered for the war effort. Now the company has expanded to all corners of the Ukrainian government, working on everything from agricultural mine clearance to building bomb shelters for schools. The war in Ukraine is believed to be the most documented conflict in history. The system can find links between the same types of crimes committed on different territories. Could it be the same military units, different military units? It helps us establish patterns and go up the chain of command. It's an incredible, incredible article. Last quote I'll read from this. By using Palantir's AI to sift through reams of photos, videos, and witness testimonies, the Ukrainian chief prosecutor has recorded details of an astonishing 124,000 potential crimes. We talked about this a while ago when we had an article come out around Palantir helping to identify different war crimes that are happening in Ukraine. Now, last week, we also got another update that Palantir has extended their partnership with the Ministry of Defense and is helping them rebuild schools. So about 3 weeks ago, we got an extension on that partnership till 2033. And then last week, we got a specific extension around what they're doing around schools, trying to make schools more livable, make sure kids can actually get an education, given that, you know, the school systems have been pretty much bombed and they need to be rebuilt when it comes to Ukraine. And so you've got Palantir kind of having their grip everywhere, not just the battlefield, but also in the rebuilding of Ukraine itself. Now, this article I thought was uniquely important because from an investor perspective, my question is, all right, how much value is Palantir really providing to Ukraine? Because if we're providing a lot more value than all of us thought we were, and for good reason, a lot of us did not have a lot of clarity into what Palantir is doing in Ukraine. We knew on a surface level, this article, and I encourage everyone to read it, goes very in depth around what exactly they're doing. That's why they did an entire expose on this article, because on Palantir, because the whole point was to really highlight the intricacies, the nuance of how Palantir is working with Ukraine. If we're providing that much value, I have two thoughts as a shareholder. Number one, I believe we are going to monetize that value. I don't know how. I don't know if it's next year. I don't know if it's year after that. I don't know if it's from the Ukrainian government. I don't know if it's from private companies in Ukraine. I have no idea how we're monetizing this, but there is some monetary value. There has to be some type of monetary value given all the resources Palantir is putting in Ukraine. In that article, it also talks about Palantir engineers being in Ukraine on the front hand working with government officials. So there is going to be some monetization towards this, which means there's going to be some top line revenue coming for Palantir. Number two, if we actually do a good job rebuilding Ukraine and we help them on the battlefield in a significant way, I think, and I've been saying this, for a long time, we got the Lithuania contract last year, or last week at $37 million. We're going to get more NATO countries, and our company will be able to expand into a variety of different governmental agencies, whether they're simple governmental agencies or defense agencies, for various NATO countries. We did the video last week about Germany wanting Palantir back. I'll link that video in the description. If you haven't watched that, definitely go watch that in terms of how Germany is thinking of procuring Palantir software after rejecting it a year ago. Like, there is a quite substantial amount of evidence showing that this is working, and it's working to the level where the software can't be replicated, which means if the software can't be replicated, Palantir has bargaining power, Palantir has leverage, and Palantir with that leverage is literally still giving away the software for free just to create more and more leverage in the future for when they monetize. I think they are monetizing Ukraine at this point. It's been almost 3 years, and I think they will be monetizing more NATO countries as we go forward. So as an investor, this was exciting to see that Palantir is really helping Ukraine in a serious way. It's not just like here or there. It's like, no. They are creating the backbone of what Ukraine will be. And I think that'll eventually extend to many more NATO countries. All right, that's it for me. Thank you, everybody, for listening and watching. DailyPalantir.substack.com. If you want the newsletter version of this video every single day, please make sure to subscribe to that. And I will see you guys on the next one on Twitter. I am posting about all the different Palantir updates that are there as well. So please make sure to follow on Twitter, and you can check out different Palantir updates. Thank you, everybody. Let me know your thoughts on price action today. What you think about this Walgreens potential partnership. And also, do you think we're making money from Ukraine? And if you think we're making money from Ukraine, how much money do you think we're actually getting? And where do you think that future can go in regards to us helping more NATO countries? Thank you, everybody. See you on the next one.